there aren't very many Congress people I like, and she's awesome. The awesome Congresswoman from Wyoming, Harriet Hageman, she is on the House Judiciary Committee. Congresswoman, before we get to what they're doing on the border, doesn't his voice bother you?
Yes, and I've had the opportunity to sit in a room with him, and after sitting there for several hours, I can tell you that it grates like fingernails on a chalkboard.
I'm sure it does. Okay, beyond his hideous voice, they're so brazen, and honestly, that's one of the things that really takes me back is how they just go on television and brag. They're picking people up down in South America and shipping them all over the country. They brag about what they're doing.
They lie about what they're doing. The fact is that they are not finding additional legal pathways for immigrants to come to this country. That's not their job. Their job is to enforce the immigration laws that are on the books. It's not for them to find different ways to make them legal. The fact is that they're doing mass paroles into the country in violation of law. They're doing catch and release in violation of the law. Anyone who is seeking asylum is not allowed to come into this country and just be released willy-nilly the way that they're doing it. So what he's doing is, as you say, he's bragging about the fact that they're violating the law and they're attempting to act as though they have the authority to do that.
Your colleagues, your Democrat colleagues in Congress, do they deny that they're trying to burn this place down on purpose? It's obvious to anyone paying attention that's what they're doing, but what do they tell you privately? They surely don't believe the hype, right?
Yes, they do. That's what's so sad and disturbing. And what I'm seeing are photographs that you're playing right now of the environmental devastation associated with this mass migration. And yet when we try to raise those kinds of things in the Natural Resource Committee, for example, they deny that they're happening. We actually raised this issue with Deb Haaland, who is a former member of Congress, and she's now the head of the Department of Interior. On average, every single illegal who has crossed that border has brought in over 8 to 10 pounds of garbage with them, which means that we have as much as 100 million pounds of garbage that has been strewn across the southern border. And so the great environmentalists in the Democrat Party ignore all of that. This has had devastating consequences for our environment, for our schools, for our hospitals, for our communities, for our families. By every single metric, this has been one of the worst disasters in the history of the United States, and they won't even acknowledge that it's happening.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of garbage, let's talk about Merrick Garland. He was held in contempt of Congress. He's, of course, announced that he's not going to arrest himself. But what can we do to that human being from here? I know Anna Paulina Luna was talking about the sergeant at arms. Where do we go from here? You can't have an AG do what he's doing with that position. You can't.
Well, that's exactly right. And what the issue is that we are entitled to receive the information, the interview between Special Counsel Hur and Joe Biden. And they have already turned over the transcript of that interview. Now, they've admitted that that transcript is not accurate as to what was actually said during the interview. They claim that they are just minor changes, but their changes we're entitled to see. So the issue is they will not allow us to have that audio tape. And I think what that audio tape demonstrates is that Joe Biden is suffering from severe dementia, which we're seeing every day on TV. But I think for the American people, they recognize that this would just be the death knell in his campaign. So Merrick Garland is withholding that, and I actually handled the debate in front of the Rules Committee last week in support of the bill to hold him in contempt of Congress. And the point that we have made is that, number one, they've already waived any claim of privilege by turning over the transcript. Number two, in our oversight role, we're entitled to have that transcript. Number three, we're entitled to know why Mr. Hur decided not to prosecute Joe Biden, despite finding that he had withheld classified documents to which he was not entitled, while at the same time they're persecuting Donald Trump for that alleged crime. So there are all kinds of reasons as to why he should be held in contempt. But the fact is, Merrick Garland is a political hack. He has been since the moment he took that office. And I think that it is devastating to our legal community and to the rule of law that he has undertaken some of the acts that he has.
How do we fix our red state delegations? And I wanted to ask you this because you're a bright, shining example of one state that's starting to get it right. You bounced Liz Cheney in the primary, which is freaking wonderful. But Wyoming is just like my state. Texas, I mean, all these red states elect the biggest losers humanly possible in their state legislature. The Senate seats in these states, gosh, John Cornyn from Texas, make me vomit. Why are these red state GOPs so lame?
You know, I think that that's a very good question that we need to start delving into in a lot more detail. But I think that we need to hold people accountable when they run for office to actually vote the way that they claim that they're going to. You and I both know that when people run for the state legislature, they often say, "Oh, I'm the most conservative person out there, and I'm going to fight Joe Biden, and I'm going to fight back, whether it's our governors or our legislators, either one. We're going to push back, and you won't find anybody more conservative than me. And boy, I adhere to the platform." And then they get in office, and that's not the way that they vote. And I think that Wyoming is a very good example of a one-party state where so many of the Democrats now run as Republicans. And as a result, our legislature oftentimes votes on things that are quite stunning. In fact, it took us a while to get Chloe's Law in place. It took us 2 legislative sessions to be able to keep boys from competing in girls' sports. This last legislative session, our budget was over $9 billion. There are 560,000 people in the state of Wyoming. Our governor put forward a budget of over $9 billion. That doesn't count the federal funds that we get. So what does happen is it's incredibly important that people look at the voting record. These races are decided in the primaries. They're not decided in the general elections when you're a one-party state. And so they need to look at those candidates who are running in the primaries. They need to look at those voting records. And if those people, no matter what they say on the campaign trail, if they are not voting conservatively, they should not be elected.
No, that's a fact. Harriet, you come back anytime. Please keep going. Or better yet, probably just leave Congress and go be governor of Wyoming. I'm probably moving there soon. I appreciate you very much.